welcome to RealClearFetish Talks RealClearPlay, a podcast that dives into kink and sober life and everything in between. This week, I'm in London, as you can see. We're on the big blue couch again, and my guest Barney is with me. Hi, Barney.
Oh, hello.
For anyone who's just listening, you won't be able to see what I'm seeing at the moment. But
yeah, there's a visual component.
You explain what you're wearing.
So basically, I'm wearing really boring normal clothes. No, I'm wearing huge shoes, big red nose, face paint. I've got my cool, massive hat on, which actually I'm going to take this off immediately because I thought this would be fun, and it's just
in the way.
Like, it's just in the way. So that's the gag.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, because I'm a clown fetishist. That's like been my whole thing since as long as I can remember. And yeah, I don't know why. I don't know like what wires got crossed, like at what stage. But this is just like how I feel by far the sexiest. This is like my whole...
Well, it's a brand new thing for me, so I'm sure we can dive into all of that and so on. With every episode, I start with 4 standard questions, and then we just go from there. So, what do you prefer to call you? Names, pronouns, and title?
Title. Well, my name's Barney, aka the Muckle Stoater. Pronouns: he, they. Not too fast. Title: clown.
A total clown. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
Gosh. Well, I didn't always look like this. When I was born, I
assumed you didn't come out of the womb like this.
Right, yeah. At least as far as I know.
I'm not like not feet first.
No,
yeah.
No. Head first, and then there was a bit. But yeah, I know I was born and raised in London, but my family background is actually a bit weird in that like none of my family are from or live in the UK. So I was sort of born and kind of left here. So yeah, I'm like sort of British, but not really. But yeah, I'm kind of like a European mongrel, and I took a long time to kind of get here. I kind of always knew this about myself, but it took me a while to accept it, and then it was quite a long journey to being confident enough to go to events, being confident enough to like meet people, being confident enough to wear the gear that I wanted to wear, and even like go out just in public in it. But that journey just kind of started to snowball until eventually now I have a podcast where I talk about fetish, and I do this like professionally. I do events and all kinds of other fun work. So yeah, I really love the direction that my life has taken. It's just took a long time to get there.
Fetish is a journey.
Yeah.
Especially figuring out, why is this making me hard?
Oh, I mean, I don't know that I'm ever going to get to the bottom of why this.
Yes.
I have theories, but like, I don't know.
I'm just like, any therapist would have a field day with both of us, so that's fine. Completely sober, clear-headed, or a social drinker?
I'm a social drinker, but I have been clean for about 6 years.
What is clear play to you, and why is it important?
To be honest, clear play is the only kind of play that I've ever really wanted to do or enjoyed. I am someone who always struggled to enjoy. There are a few times that I have like had, I would say, like sexual encounters where I was either drunk or high, and none of those made me feel great. Like, they were fun in the moment, but I didn't feel good about it afterwards. And I much prefer, I'm really like a headspace player. So for me, it's really important to have a strong connection with the person, and to really like, there needs to be enough trust to like be able to indulge in this kind of silliness, right? Like,
yes.
This is kind of out there. It's kind of wacky. So that for me is kind of taken away if we're not sober, or at least I'm not sober. I'm not really willing to play with someone where like where we're both not sober is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. To be a level playing field.
Yeah, there needs to be, it's fine if like, they've had a couple drinks, whatever. That's fine, so long as we are both on the same level and cogent. If it's a case of, I'm meeting with someone and they're high, it just really changes the game, because now we're in two different headspaces, and I don't feel comfortable with that.
From being curious about it to actually getting to the point where you are now, can you tell me a little bit about that journey of getting to a point where you were comfortable actually saying, I'm a clown fetishist?
Yeah.
And I know nothing about it, so treat me like I'm completely green out of the box.
You know, it was such a... It was just dipping the toes, because I still have moments where I have to push myself off a mental ledge. And then once I do it, it's fine. It took me... So I used to be an actor. That was like what I trained to do, and that's what like I always kind of figured I wanted to... I just didn't really want to do anything else. There was an element of that where I was like, you know, clowning was part of my university course and that kind of thing, and I was like so uncomfortable because, you know, that element of performance to me, I think there was something about it where, as a kid, I really envied like the class clown, because I was kind of a precocious kid, but I was also really self-conscious. And so I wasn't like, if somebody was louder than me in class, it made me kind of shrink. And I was really terrified of looking silly and being embarrassed. And so the people who didn't care about looking silly or being embarrassed, or like wanted to get a laugh out of somebody, that to me was really, really cool. And I think that's like what made me kind of want to be an actor. And I was kind of, I guess, trying to find my way to that. But I basically started, once I left home, and even a little bit before when I was a teenager, I tried to get like bits and pieces, get a nose, get some silly outfits. And I started like finding people online. That was kind of the first step, because you know, it is kind of like kid brain logic, but I assumed I was the only person in the world with a clown fetish. Obviously not true. But then I also thought, the few people that I found online, I thought, well, that's got to be it. This must be so rare.
Yeah.
Not so. But, and also like, it's amazing to me how many people are kink sponges and love to try new things. And like, that's really, really fun. So eventually and I've never been into vanilla sex in any way. It's just nothing about it was ever interesting to me. Like, I knew that this was... I kind of like... I like to say that I'm clown sexual, because I don't know. Outside of this, I don't know what like my sexuality would really look like, because I don't... There's nothing about like vanilla sex that ever turned me on. And I used to really think like, the puppy players, like, if only I was into something so normal. You know, I used to see that as like, if only I was into like an easy kink like that. And it took me a long time to find my way into pup play. And when I did, I was like, oh, you guys are just doing the same thing with a pup hood as I am with like a red nose. It's just like brain off, silly, fun. Like, puppies are such nerds. Like, I thought puppies were cool. And come to find out, like, everybody's just kind of in their own way doing their own nerdy thing. We're all doing something where, even if you play in a very serious way, you're still indulging in pleasure, and you're still indulging in something where you're playing. You know, it's the adult version of like of play. And so it took me a really long time to realize that actually the way that my brain was wired isn't really that weird. I just have like a really silly expression of it, but I still was way too shy to meet anyone, and I was kind of lurking online, talking to a handful of people. I was doing some online kind of play, some cam stuff, role-playing, that kind of thing. All the things that I now just don't really have the space or time for, because, you know, people will message me and ask to do that kind of stuff, and I'm like, you know what, I get it. That used to be me. I'm so much happier, and I so much more prefer in-person play. And that requires me to also like get to know someone. Yeah. So I have a partner who's actually vanilla, which like is so weird. And it took me a really long time to get the bravery to like come out to him. And it took about like 5 years.
Oh, wow.
And we'd even known each other like longer than that. And so he kind of worked it out eventually, but was like waiting for me to say it.
Nose dotted somewhere.
Yeah.
The oversized shoes. There was clues
something
everywhere. Like, yeah, it's like random honks.
No, it was really like I was really secretive about certain things. You know, like my phone, my laptop, my, you know, this bag that has a lock on it. And, you know, he's like, okay, you're into weird kinky shit. Like, how bad can it be? And so I thought that I would
Well.
I was like, well, but I thought this was as bad as it gets, right?
Yeah.
I thought, if it was just latex, if it was just leather, if it was just pup play, if it was like ABDL, I thought those are kind of things that he would recognize. And this, he'd be like, what? So I slowly introduced stuff. I'm like, well, let me try some pup play. He's not into anything. He's like, I just like sex. Weirdo. Anyway, so it gets eventually to the point that I introduce him to everything, and he's kind of like, yeah, what? And so I tell him it's clowns, and he's like, that's it? Like, he was so unimpressed. He was like, that's it? Yeah, we can do that. That's really not that weird. And I was like, thank you for saying so. I think it's really weird. And he's like, dude, you were willing to like introduce me to stuff like diapers before you were willing to introduce me to stuff like clowns. And I was like, yeah, because I thought that, like, you know what that is. There's a recognizable kink. I'm getting into more normal kinks so that I can introduce you to these more normal kinks. He's like, dude, your kink is like so much less effort to me than that mentally. Like, I was like, okay. And so he was the one who was like, well, listen, you need to make friends. You need to go out and find your people, because this is like, it's not good for you that you are so closeted about this. And so he encouraged me to make friends, and I did. I got on Recon, I started meeting people, and slowly we just talked about like what we wanted from our relationship, and we ended up opening the relationship and trialing that, and it really, really worked for us. And so eventually I used to resent this idea because when I was a kid, all of my friends could find the porn they wanted at their fingertips. And it really pissed me off because there is no male clown porn like anywhere. It is extremely hard to find. Female clown porn, like straight clown porn, everywhere, everywhere. But you can't find two men doing it. There's only like a handful of like videos on there. I would say on the internet there's like 5 decent clown, like gay clown porn videos, and I know every single one off the top of my head and
I
where
know
to
what
find
I'm Googling later, because I need to have a look at that.
I know exactly what you will find. I've been Googling gay clown porn like on a regular basis since I was like 14. So just to check what's up on there. And it's also interesting how often stuff gets removed. And then some of it resurfaces, and then some of it goes. So I always really resented the idea that I would have to make my own porn, because I was just kind of like, I don't want to have to do that. And I was also really afraid of like, if I am going to be an actor, if I do anything, like if I get a big job, like this is just something that would impact me. Like I would be terrified of being, I don't know, blackmailed, which I guess is a very narcissistic fear to have. But like,
no, it's. I've seen people who are in regular jobs where they've have a Twitter presence, or they have a Recon profile and so on, and they lose their jobs.
Yeah,
and it's. I don't think it's narcissistic. It's a very valid worry, especially as kinksters.
I guess it's more. I like to think of it as big-headed, because I didn't want to. I didn't want to let this very serious worry like loom over me. And I also thought, like, if I just worked in an industry that was, a lot more anonymous, then maybe I wouldn't feel that way. Which I guess is why I think of it like that. But I also knew somebody who he had like a clown Facebook. I don't know why actually, but he had a clown Facebook, and his boyfriend at the time found it, or his ex-boyfriend. So anyway, he showed it to people. He showed it to their friends, and that was the worst thing I could imagine happening. And he was like, it actually was fine. Like nobody cared, and anyone who like was gonna care isn't somebody that I wanted to keep in my life. And even the person who showed people like apologized and was like, that wasn't any of my business, and we're actually cool now. And that kind of made me think, oh yeah, actually, if I get to the stage where I'm confident enough to own this, nobody can use it against me, because they would be the asshole trying to like shame me for something that I'm not ashamed of. And so that kind of thinking got me to a place where I was like, okay, that's where I want to be. I don't know that I'll get there, but that's where I want to be. And so when I started meeting people and I started doing stuff with people, and I started realizing how many, I mean, this is the thing, I sort of felt like I knew all the clown kinksters, and I met up with like all the ones in the UK that I knew. And then I made a Recon profile, and that was like a huge shift for me, because within a week, or maybe 2 weeks, my inbox was just flooded with people that I'd never heard of, who either said, I've always secretly been into this. I want to try this. I don't know about it, but I really want to try it. Or never considered it, but now I've seen your profile. I want to do it. Let's do it. And it was blowing my mind. And it was just constant. It was like every like other day for like ages, and I still get like messages from new people. And it really blew my mind. I was like, oh, okay. So actually kind of being like open about it really changed the game. And very quickly, I was asked to write an article for Recon, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know if I'm ready for this yet. Like it really kind of pushed me out there. And so I started doing fetish art. That was kind of like the first thing, because I'm a digital artist. And so I decided to combine my passions, and I just started doing like art commissions. And then I found the whole like kinky Twitter community and all the kinksters on Instagram. And I wasn't like a social media person before that. And so I started meeting all these new people, and all these new people who knew this about me before anything else. And so it just felt like, with all of my friends in vanilla life, it really felt like there's this huge gulf between us, because there's this thing that I'm keeping a secret, and I'm so dedicated to keeping it secret. And I know they wouldn't really care, but it's still in my mind like the biggest thing. And meeting people, like kinky people, where that's the first thing, you get that out of the way. I'm like, wow, we can talk about anything. And it completely changed the way I thought about things. I went to my first event ever, which was in Berlin. I was so nervous. I was not prepared to wear this. I was not ready to like be open about clowning. But I actually just came back from that same venue literally yesterday, because it's my favorite place in the world. That's where I've had like the most like new experiences. And that's where like I was encouraged to wear my clown outfits, and I slowly started doing them more and more and more until now it's just like all I wear. But that first experience, the very first time I went there, I was like, wow, the way that I arrived here, so terrified that I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna go. And I started to walk away, and then I looked, and I was like, oh, that I could like see where like the kinksters were. There was like a little window, and I was like, okay, no, actually, I'm gonna go, because if it sucks and I don't feel comfortable, I can just leave.
That is important.
But if this is gonna be as fun as I hope it is, like I'm crazy to walk away. And I went in, and it honestly, that experience changed my life, because I was like, I know what I want to do. I want to live and breathe this world 24/7. I don't know how exactly, but I want to combine all my passions, and this is what I want to do. So I came home, I quit my job. I started like looking for gigs where I could do like clown performances in like a kind of fetish cabaret type way. I started putting a lot of energy into getting my art commissions going. And I also just looked for companies that were like, geared at working within the community. And so I quickly found a job working for an American startup that was all about like, it was fetish apparel, but it was also kind of a multimedia thing where like they wanted me to write opinion pieces, and I started editing their podcasts. And then eventually they were like, do you want your own podcast? And that's how I started it. And then that company folded, and so I took control of the whole podcast and just kept doing it from then on. And it blew my mind, like I just more and more and more like people messaging me saying like, oh wow, I mean, I'm sure you get the same thing as well, where people are like, I listened to an episode of your podcast and it like really touched me in this way, or like it was huge, like I really needed to hear that, or it changed my life in this small way. And I'm just like, wow, I'm doing the thing that I wished somebody else was doing when I was growing up. Because I would have been like, oh, okay, I can do that. Oh, I get to be a sex clown? Oh, cool. Okay, great. I'm going to go be a sex clown. Instead of being like, I have to be something socially acceptable. So I'm, gonna like, yeah. So, I mean, that's kind of like short story long. That's kind of how I ended up here. And even just like going to events with like makeup on, traveling in public transport with makeup on, or in costume or stuff like that. All of these things are like big barriers that make me so nervous. And actually, I think the last real barrier is being more open with like vanilla people in my life, because everyone knows like that this is what I do for a living. but they don't know like the specifics. They don't know that
They
it's
don't
a
know it's
clown.
kinky.
They know it's kinky.
They know it's kinky.
They know it's kinky. They
but
just
they
don't
know
know that I'm a clown.
Ah.
They know that I do like fetish stuff. They know that I do fetish art. They know that I have a fetish podcast. They know that I do fetish performances. They know that I do like some escorting. They don't know that like my niche is clowning. And that's the part that like, if anything, they'll be like, wow, cool, that's interesting. But to me is like still like, it's the most embarrassing thing ever, you know?
It's I think everything, because as gay people we come out constantly, so coming out as fetishists as well is challenging. I definitely remember coming out as gay, then I had to come out as a fetishist, then I had to come out as an addict, and it's just a never-ending thing. And of course we all have anxieties on how people will perceive something, especially when we're talking about a niche fetish like clowning.
Yeah.
But as an example of your boyfriend, he's like, oh, was that it? Really?
Yeah. Maybe, you know, like didn't even give me the satisfaction of being horrified. Like, what the hell?
That was how I felt with my mom when I came out. She was like, oh, I knew that.
Actually,
I was very upset.
Well, this is the thing. Like, I've had very few coming out experiences actually, because this was kind of the big one. You know, like when I was younger, I never knew how to define my sexuality to people, so I just never did.
Okay.
And I kind of let my behavior dictate it. So, you know, people would call me gay or bisexual or you know, whatever, and I was just kind of like, yeah, totally, whatever. That sounds better than clown sexual. So I just like let them, you know, like call me whatever or believe whatever. And obviously kids always want to like put you in boxes, and so I never really had an answer, and kind of just let people be frustratedly like make one up. So I wasn't really like, I hadn't really practiced coming out. So this coming out to my partner was like, that to me was like such a big moment. And that was, I mean, like, yeah, I was 24, something like that. So it was like, yeah, it was just, it all seemed so silly afterwards. And I'm kind of like, but this was such a big deal. Like, it was such a big deal in my head.
I think as kinksters and so on, we build it up to being something big. And then when we don't get the reaction we're expecting, even if we're dreading that reaction,
yeah,
it's almost like anticlimactic.
Oh, I think always will be.
Also, I think we've been painted into our heads, or brainwashed into our heads, that has to be something dramatic.
Yes, yeah,
especially when it comes to coming out.
Yep,
it has to be dramatic, because if it's not dramatic, what's the fucking
point?
what
are you doing it for?
Yeah.
If there's not like some tears and screaming, like what's the point?
It's like, you ruined my life. So you mentioned that you became sober 5-6 years ago.
Yeah, I got clean. I mean,
clean.
Yeah, that was, well, actually, as of literally today, I have to practice sobriety for the first time.
Okay.
Because I just started a brand new medication, which I actually cannot drink on. You know, they normally say like don't drink, but they were like, no, really, don't do that.
Drink.
Which is kind of interesting, because drinking is something that I have always felt. I feel like, especially living in the UK, British culture revolves around drinking in a way that is very, you need an excuse not to.
Yeah.
There has to be a reason why you aren't. And it is like, people think it's strange if you don't.
Oh, I don't drink.
Yeah, or I don't feel like it right now. Even is just like, why not?
Good enough, yeah.
So I'm kind of like relieved to have an excuse. I was like, oh, I can't right now. I'm on medication. Because unless you have like a reason, it's something that I think there is a lot of, and I don't think this is, you know, necessarily a malicious thing, but there's a lot of social pressure.
Oh.
And it's just, even from people who, you know, are your close friends, who in theory, you know, would be supportive, there's still the expectation that every social engagement is going to involve drinking. I mean, my university experience was, because I also was a chain smoker for 10 years. Again, it's a cultural thing. It just was so normal. It was just something everybody did, and it just became something I ended up doing every day. And when I quit smoking, I was like, did I smell awful for 10 years and no one told me? Like, it is so disgusting in pretty much every way. but my whole university experience was sitting outside at a pub, no matter what like time of year it was, no matter what the weather, smoking and drinking for hours and hours and hours. That was just how we celebrated. It's how we commiserated. It's how we like spent time. It's how we like. I had so many meetings, that were at a pub. I had like lessons that were at a pub. You do have meals at the pub, and also we very much have a culture of like learning to drink early before you learn to do other things, which in many ways I think is, it's better than like say in America where you learn to drive before you learn to drink, and then drink driving is a huge problem. Whereas here it's like, it's just expected that you learn very quickly how to handle large amounts of alcohol, and that you become very okay with that. And so, in terms of not drinking, I've never wanted to take time out because it always felt like, oh, why would you do that? Why would I do that to myself? And then I question, like, is that because I feel like I need to drink to have fun? And so I'm very interested to see how this goes. But drugs was something that I feel like I kind of had an unusual journey with, because I started quite young, and I started with the first drug I ever did before I even smoked weed was a bomb of MDMA, and uppers just became my go-to.
Funny enough, MDMA was the first one as well. My partners at the time was like, it's a little starter drug.
Yeah. Little starter drug, little like, let's just a little bomb of some class A's. I mean, that was the best. It was the best that I have ever felt. And what's weird about it is, I don't know if I was quite fortunate to have, well, I had a terrible father, but I had a pretty cool mother who I lived with as a teenager, and she was like, "You're gonna go and drink and experiment, and like, you're gonna be sexually active. I know this. I was a teenager. I just want you to be safe.
Yeah.
Be sensible. Don't lie to me about where you are. Call me if you need anything." And also, like, that meant that my home was like a safe place to do stuff like that, because friends who had stricter parents knew that they could come and like, we could drink in a controlled environment or whatever. And so my mom grew up in Soviet communism, so she was like, if drugs had been available to me, I never would have gotten out. I never would have left. I probably like would never have had you. So, I've never done any drugs. We just didn't have them. But tell me what they're like. She was like, I'd love to vicariously experience them. So I don't know if it was kind of that, having this like very open, accepting home environment, where also I was quite fortunate to have like some decent drug education going on. Like, I still think there's a lot more that could be done, but it's good that even at that age I was aware of stuff. But I just, as I came up the first time, the very first thing I did was call my mom. And I was like, you don't need to pick me up. I'm having a lovely time. Bye-bye. And then I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, which obviously was a little easier to take seriously than right now. And I looked at myself in the mirror and I was like, okay, self, this is the best I've ever felt. And this is probably the best I'm ever going to feel. And that has to be okay, because otherwise this is going to be an enormous problem for me for the rest of my life. And I don't want this to be an enormous problem for me for the rest of my life. And I remember being like, deal, I was like, okay, now I'm going to go have fun. And I like had a great time. And then after that, I was very conscious of like, okay, well, I'm going to check in with myself in a few years and be like, is this something that needs to stop? So I think I put that in the back of my mind really early. It was when the behavior became a lot more of a habit that that question kind of came back, and I was like, do I need to stop this? And it also, I think, it was a real wake-up call when close friends of mine went down paths that I really, not that I want to say like I didn't see coming or didn't expect, but it was like, we were all having a good time. It was not something that anyone ever talked about, that we needed this to have a good time. It was just this thing we love to do, and that's fine, right? And my drug of choice was always uppers. So I was MDMA pills, ecstasy. I had a really bad time on methadone, which was my friend's drug of choice, and I had a few experiences which was
was the start of my downfall.
I honestly, I think a huge part of what turned things around for me was living with this friend, because he got into a really, really bad place. And the only thing he seemingly could do was get high, and like his favorite thing to do actually was like take methadone, which still makes me like really. I had a really, really like horrifying just like experience. Like the complete inability to create new memories was terrifying to me, and I used to go in really, really bad. So if I forgot to give myself, I would always have 2 full like sticks of gum. If I didn't have those, my tongue was torn to shreds, white bumps, and he just wanted to like sit and talk about our feelings and put something on the TV, and I was like, no, I want to like move. I mean, he would do that on ecstasy. He would do that on MD, and I was like, okay, you can talk about your fucking feelings, but we have to like run around the block because I need to like move. So yeah, I was always just about pills, and I really steered away from psychedelics because I already knew that my mental state already like wasn't great back then. There was obviously a lot that I was suppressing that I wasn't ready to accept about myself. And so, you know, that there was this like this really scary back of the mind depression where I was like, if I take psychedelics, I know, I just know I will trick myself into having a horrible time, into having a really, really terrifying time. And I had night terrors and stuff, so I was like, that's scary enough. Yeah, and then I think watching this friend of mine, you know, I had to lie to his family about like really important stuff. He once was like, he was so fucked up. He missed his grandmother's funeral, and the family were gonna like scatter the ashes together, and I had to be the one to like tell them that he wasn't coming. And I just was like, I've been put in so many positions like this where I'm like, I can't live with you anymore. And I want to help you, but you don't want me to help you.
Yeah.
So I will like kill myself trying. It's just like I had another friend who, when we were really young, we were teenagers, we were kids. We thought of ourselves as really grown up, but we were kids. And she had a very, very terrible eating disorder that nearly killed her several times. And after going through that, I had this like, I think that the realization that you can't help someone who isn't actively seeking your help was something I learned really early on. And I was like, I can't do this again. And I'm really happy to say that both of those people are, well, he's back in my life after like, it was about 5 years, I don't know, where like I wouldn't speak to him. He got clean, and then he got sober and turned his life around. Great. And then eventually became a person that I was willing to like know again. And also my other friend had a full recovery and has remained consistent with that for a very long time, which is like amazing and very rare with that kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, I think those experiences, and I had other friends as well who just, I mean, are still so in that life. It was just so normal. And there was something about also the sun coming up. The sun coming up and I haven't gone to bed is a feeling that makes me like really uncomfortable. I remember always hating it. It was always that moment where I was like, ugh. And so I would try to leave before the sun came up, but it was just so normal to go to someone's house, get super, super high, and we would just, we didn't even need to be like necessarily doing anything fun, but drugs had to be a part of it. There's a lot of people that I was like, I really like you. I really want to be your friend. I really care about you, but like, I just can't be around you that much because this is all you want to do.
Yeah.
This is all you want to do socially. And yeah, I forgot the question.
No, absolutely. No, you. The question was, is like, so what actually made you eventually stop? Because it is a cycle that's quite hard to break if it's just become a habit. Not necessarily an addiction, but just like, this is normal.
Yeah, it was normal. It was
Yeah.
a habit, and it was one thing actually was it was financially very difficult. Like it's a very difficult habit to have. I
Yeah.
sort of traded drugs for fetish because I was like, okay,
I'll spend
money on
clown shoes.
yeah,
and-
like
yeah,
I
yeah.
mean, like okay,
Well, that's more fun, isn't it?
way more fun. These are like an actual investment, and a lot of this stuff. These are leather clown shoes. These are like real clown shoes. These are fucking expensive. Like these noses as well. Like they're expensive, and I way prefer having these things that I love and get to keep and play and have fun and have sex in and make weird clown porn in than stuff that was just this, And the other thing is chasing that temporary high. That was something that, I think I planted that seed really early and it helped.
Well,
But
you literally talked to you in the mirror
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah.
said,
Oh yeah, I don't want
this
to.
is never going to get as good as the first time.
Yes, I knew
And
that.
it
I
is
knew that.
so true.
Yeah, I knew that from the beginning, and so I was almost waiting for it to happen where I'm like, this is not fun anymore, because every time my drug of choice was always MD, pretty much consistently, and when I took it, every time I'd be like, oh, okay, I need a little bit more this time.
Yeah.
And you are never quite, you're still chasing the first time. So you're never quite there, even if you have a great time. And I had so many great times. I also had so many times where, like, I'm not sure what that was, but it was not, it was not MDMA. And there was one time I ended up, me and a friend ended up in the Barbican, in the complex, at, like, trapped, or we thought we were trapped. And I scaled a brick wall with vines, and the vines broke, and I nearly fell back into the little river, and we couldn't figure out how to get out. And, like,
to be honest, even
without
drugs, it is a quite confusing complex to get out of
yeah,
if you don't know your route.
I guess, but it was just like we didn't know how we got there. So, like, there was so many moments like that where I was like, this isn't great. I didn't know this dealer, and there was something that smelt like rubber and was a funny color. There was just so many times where I was like, okay, I'm going to put this in my body and hope for the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really didn't like any of those times afterwards. I would always be like, that was reckless, and I don't like being reckless, and I'm now, like, breaking my own rules of trying to be sensible and blah, blah, blah. And I think as well, I saw myself reflected in the people around me. That time in the Barbican, that friend was another person who, she had a lot of mental health problems that she was medicated with antipsychotics for, and then was doing this many drugs. And that was the person with whom I started and ended my day with. We would always have a cigarette and a tea and just smoked weed throughout. And it was like, you're making your life worse. Because this is having effects on you in your day-to-day life where, like, it's not my responsibility to come in and get you up in the morning and, like, be like, let's go to class. But that's just what our life was. And I think seeing the effects it was having on other people and this chasing it, like, the more money, this was the other thing, it was just like, it costs so fucking much, especially in central London. I'm doing drugs in central London, and also a lot of the time I'm buying drugs for, like, groups of friends. And if I'm already high, there was one time where I was already high, I'd gone out to meet friends of friends, and I'm now trying to, like, impress my friends' friends and get them to like me. Someone's like, "Oh, should we pick up?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I know a guy, and oh great, like, oh, and don't worry about, I'll buy it all, and you pay me back." I never got any of that fucking money back, obviously. I go to an ATM, I take out, like, all the money I have to pay for, like, an enormous amount of drugs. I'm like, "We can go to my house, blah 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 blah," and then the next day it's like, "Oh, I don't really know any of those people. They, like, took the drugs, that I paid for. I'm not seeing any of that money again, and, like, and also, like, they borrowed some stuff that they took and I never saw again." And I'm just like, oh, okay, so I've just made a series of bad choices. Like, I was really pissed off.
What do you mean? You make great choices on drugs.
Yeah, drug thinking just, like, it always
makes sense.
It makes sense at the time, and it's
Yeah.
beautiful at the time because you feel so connected to the person, and you're so like, yeah, of course, I want to do all these lovely things for you. And then afterwards, I was like,
Oh, they're a bunch of cunts.
yeah, or just, like, maybe they weren't even that bad, but, like, I just prostrated myself at their feet for no reason. Like, what? Like, I've just made a series of poor decisions that I'm now, like, grumpy about. So, and just spending the money, like, it really got to the point where I was like, I don't have a lot of money, and I'm now deciding what to spend my money on, and I'm choosing to spend my money on drugs when I need to spend my money on things that I need. And I'm spending more money on drugs because I need to buy more drugs to get the same effect. There was one time where I was waiting, and it always takes me a little bit longer than my friends to come up. So I'm waiting, and then it hits. And I remember being like, oh no, I need another bomb immediately. This is not going to go well. This is like, it made me feel like I'd done a bump of coke, which was just, I remember the first time I did cocaine, I was like, why would anyone do this? Why would anyone do this? This sucks. It stinks. And it's like a short buzz that isn't the euphoria that I want. Like, I want to be in a state where I feel completely calm and at peace and, one with the world, but like I could also stay up till 3 a.m. talking with a stranger or cleaning my house or like running a marathon. Like, that's just how I wanted to exist all the time. Yeah, I remember being like, oh, I need more. That's not great. And that was kind of, I think, what led to it. I quit smoking a few months beforehand. I think after doing that, I just sort of got used to saying no to things. And I was with work people, and they were like, we're going to pick up, do you want anything? And it was kind of this moment where I was like, I don't know. And I was like, do you know what? I'll come with you. I don't know if I want anything. And they were like, okay, well, if you do, like,
fine,
cool, yeah, fine. And I was like, wow, I really can just say no. Huh. And so I was like, do you know what? I'm good. You guys go. They picked up. I still had a lovely time. I was not concerned. And after that, I was like, I think I'm done. I think I've reached my limit. And there was one time after that, actually, where I did do a bump of something. Maybe it was Coke. I can't remember. But I've been drinking, and I was with one of my friends who's like wonderful person, but just somebody that I like couldn't really hang out with that much anymore because huge drinker, huge drug taker, life of the party, but just like a huge enabler. I was drunk, and she just put a line out in front of me, and I just snorted it, and then was like, "Oh, I didn't want to do that." And she was like, "Oh, I'm so sorry. I wouldn't have made a line for you. I didn't know that you weren't like doing that anymore." I was like, "Yeah, And so after that, I just was like, okay, I said it out loud, and so yeah, that's just kind of what stopped it all.
Oh, that's if I had that willpower to kind of just go, do you know what? I've had enough.
Do you know
But
what?
then again, I think it's different times for different, like, where your brain just goes, do you know what?
Yeah,
Enough. And sometimes it doesn't always have to be dramatic. It just be,
I was waiting for the drama.
yeah.
And the other thing is, I watched the drama happen with
You were
other
waiting for the
people.
other big shoe to fall.
Yeah. The other huge shoe to fall, like like a
literally,
cartoon
literally.
anvil. No, because I saw my friends kind of hit their rock bottom and then be like, oh, there's another bottom I can hit. And I think that was enough drama for me. I think I really was like, I don't know if I want the drama, because smoking was actually a really big thing for me, because smoking is kind of horrible in every sense. Smoking doesn't like, I didn't get anything from it. I mean, a bit of stress relief, but it was like, the only reason I have the urge to smoke is to necessitate the need to smoke. Like, I'm only smoking because I'm like, oh, I haven't had a cigarette. And I was like, why am I doing this to myself? If I just like stop doing this, then I won't feel like I need a cigarette. And I was like, okay, I stopped doing this thing that objectively was not fun. Like, I wasn't getting high. So what was I doing it for? It just had become a habit. And then I guess I just looked at these other habits that I was getting something from. Yeah, but then I also think that I was like, I'm going to cling to drinking because that is like the most socially acceptable thing I can do. And I can still hang out with people who are taking drugs because I don't mind that so much. There are people who, are real big enablers and are a bit too into it that I can't really. But I don't mind if some people are taking stuff. And even in fetish, like, people started offering me poppers, which is just something that had never really. The only times that I did poppers previously was like, I remember the first time a friend of mine at a party, she just had like she just bought a bottle of poppers, and I was like, I've never done that before. And that was like, poppers were like a party thing that I did a few times, and I was like, whatever. When in the kink scene, people are like, oh, do you want to hit? Even that, I was like, no, it's not for me. It makes me feel like I'm doing the thing again.
Yeah.
And even now, now I work gigs where sometimes I am just out until the sun comes up, and even that just makes me feel like, ugh. And I have to remind myself, like, yeah, but the thing that made me feel icky about it isn't happening anymore.
Yeah.
I'm not shoving shit up my nose until the sun comes up
You're
and then
actually
feeling
out
gross.
doing
Yeah,
your kink, what you're passionate
yeah,
about.
yeah.
So do tell me a little bit about what is clown porn and what is, like, for example, you mentioned you've done escorting.
Yeah.
So what requests will you get? I have ideas in my head, but it's probably not even that.
I love the requests that I get because putting myself out there is like, oh, and I do this weird clown shit. It means that I get the people who are like, oh, hey, you do weird stuff? Cool. How about this? Can you read a newspaper while you have your big shoe on my head? That was it.
Okay.
Slowly, like, close and open the newspaper. Just read it. Stamp on my Playmobil City wasn't as a clown, but somebody just literally just wants me to wear these socks and to sniff them while I'm dressed as a clown. And I'm like, yeah, man, that's so cool. Like, I love how, like, weird people are, because I've discovered that I'm a kink sponge and I can basically be into anything if I find the way to make it, like, fun for me, which is usually to make it kind of, like, silly. But I love doing that for people. It's what I do, like, fetish art for. You know, I draw things like people being blown up as a blueberry, and I've got, like, now a friend, but at the time they were just commissioning me, and he was like, can you draw me as a frog with huge tits and a big cock and, like, an expanding belly? And I was like, yeah, that sounds amazing. Like, yeah. So I love doing that for people. Clown sex is exactly what it sounds like. It's sex and you're dressed as a clown, and it's silly. And the thing about it is there's an element of it that I've learnt can be applied to all sex, which is that nothing has to be taken so seriously. Now, a lot of people like seriousness in their play. I can't fuck with it, but to me, like, there is this small element of what I do in clown play that it makes it not a big deal. I think there's a lot of anxiety that people can bring into sex, and feeling like it needs to go a certain way. I need to appear a certain way. I need to act a certain way. I need to provide a certain thing. And the best sex, like, I have ever had has been where everything goes wrong and it doesn't matter. And, like, there's so many times where things happen, especially if you're doing weird gay shit. Like, sorry, but that's where poo happens. If you're putting something up there, there's just a chance that something goes wrong.
Yeah.
And if you can have a sense of humor about it, so that the other person doesn't feel like mortified. I was not going to do it, but
I'm 40 now. I can do dad humor.
I have such a dad joke kink. Not relevant. I just love bad jokes. For some reason, it makes me go like, oh, dad. But yeah, there's this, like, total silliness. I also love this as well because it's like, to me, this is really sexy. And so I think some people have applied that to, like, oh, we're not trying to look sexy, so I don't feel any pressure. And I'm like, great. Because to me, the sillier you are willing to look, the hotter you are. Like, to me, the sexiest thing is, like, seriously, like, big bozo, like, the ball cap wig and the huge nose, huge shoes, like, and also just letting it hang out. Like, I think there are elements of, like, if you have a big belly, that's, like, works. We can have so much fun with that because it just adds to all the bits. If you have a big beard, if if there's any feature that you want to just be like, this is part of my clown outfit and we're going to be silly. You want to wear, like, huge Mickey Mouse hands. That to me is, like, the willingness to do it, the willingness to look silly, to put on makeup is so fucking sexy. And that makes me, like, voraciously horny. And so adding silly elements, like, I like using a lot of puns and double entendres, like blowing up balloons and cream pies and all that kind of stuff, honking a horn as I come, and, like, shooting, silly string, squirting silly string and shooting confetti and all this kind of stuff. Like, also balloon bondage is something that I really love doing because modeling balloons are actually really strong. And depending on, like, the air pressure in a room, they're actually quite difficult to pop. So there's so many things that, like, I feel blend with other kinks. I've been a clown and played with pups, and it's like the pup enjoys being trained like a circus dog. And I've played with people who just love the transformative element, which is another thing, like smearing on the makeup, gluing on the nose, showing you your face and being like, haha, I made you look like me. And they don't recognize themselves. Like that's like another huge element. Hypnosis is another huge thing. The whole acting dumb, brain off, making you look silly aspect to it that like a circus hypnotist would have. There's also like a silly playful element that comes into like age play and stuff like that. And also then if your kink is to do with like sensations, pies in the face, gunge players, food players, cakes, all that kind of stuff works with it. But also like I have a leather clown outfit, a full custom leather ruffles. I have it's a leather ruffle with a like collar to lock it on, and leather ruffles for the wrists, white leather gloves, and then I've got I wanted it to be black so that it reads as leather because I like kind of infiltrating spaces and being like, yeah, this is also a thing.
Yeah.
So kind of going to leather events and then people are like, there's a clown. It's like, yeah. And like my leather's black, but then it has colors on it, which is really fun.
It's not long ago I went to a fetish event where there was a rubber clown.
That was probably me.
Maybe it was, I'm not sure, but I know we were all like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Great.
I have a full rubber like clown outfit. Yeah, because it's just I love bringing that energy to an event, because I think a lot of the time, again, people get in their own heads, like especially people starting out in kink, they want to fit in, and they're like, okay, so if I get like the same 3 black leather harnesses that I've seen around, and it's actually like injecting color into a space, I find really, really fun. Just because I think there are probably people there who, well, I know there are people there who are like, oh my God, cool, because they come and talk to me.
Yeah.
And it is also really interesting. I've actually done it just out and about at like gay bars and stuff where it's very interesting how by the end of the night, you can see all the people with makeup smeared around their face because like eventually people get, they have a few drinks and they come up and they're like, hey, so like, this is kind of hot. And it's like, you want to make out with a clown? Yeah, cool. But I've also found that there's like another element to it, which is kind of therapeutic. I love the therapeutic element of kink because there's so many things that I was afraid of or afraid to do, which have since become big kinks just because I got to explore them in a safe way. And so the number of people who have said, I'm scared of clowns, but I'm not scared of you.
I was about to say that because there is a big clown phobia.
Yeah. Which is really interesting to me. And most of the time I find it's because if they talk to me for 5 minutes, they're like, okay, well, you're not scary. I'm like, well, that's just because you're talking to me. You've realized that I'm a person. And if I can, like, I'll take the nose off. Like these ones, you can actually just pop off so that they can see, or if I haven't gotten ready yet and someone says they're scared of clowns, I'm like, listen, I'm just going to put my makeup on. If you want to like stay with me and chat while I do it, that's totally cool. And then if you get uncomfortable at any point, just you can leave. I don't mind. But that really helps because they see the transformation. I'm just going to pop this back on. They see the transformation happen, and so they're like, oh, that's just a dude under there. And so I was at Folsom recently, and somebody came up to me.
It was you I saw, because I was also at Folsom.
Oh, yeah?
So it must have been you.
Somebody came up to me. This was concurrently with me discovering the power of my penis, which sounds like a really silly thing to say. But it never had occurred to me because just like bodies and sex acts and genitalia has never occurred to me. And I realized that if I just walk around with my dick out, I get a lot more attention because all the gays come up and they're like,
really?
Yeah, it's just like,
no.
I was like, ugh. So I was just like walking around and this guy came up to me. He was a bit drunk, but he came up to me and he was like, ha, 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 ha. And he's like, I'm so confused right now because like, I'm really scared of clowns, but I really like your dick. And like, your dick looks really sexy, but then you look really scary, but then your dick looks really sexy. And now I don't know if I like the fact that, and because also like fear and arousal are so closely connected that like excitement from it.
But I would assume there would be people who wants the scary clown.
Yeah.
There
must be
There must be like, yes, there could be the happy-go-lucky honk honk kind of thing.
Yeah.
But there must also be clown fetishes who really get into like they
Part the
want
clown,
the dark clown.
Yeah.
They kind of fascinated with like it and I know they're a bit campy, but like Space Clowns. And,
Oh yeah.
those films where it's meant to be slightly scary.
Yes. Or Terrifier, which is
Oh,
legitimately horrifying. Yeah, it's really interesting. I have met people who have fetishes for all of those clowns, like individually. I don't like horror clowns personally. I like the circus clown, but there is an element to it, the psychological element of like, haha, we're gonna like kidnap. My earliest fantasies were like being kidnapped by clowns. Because as a kid, I was kind of weirded out by them. I didn't know what they were gonna do. And so this idea of like, we're gonna mess you up or embarrass you or turn you into a clown was very like hot to me. People have asked me to do that, and I don't mind doing like the kind of creepy Joker, like transform you and traumatize you and drive you crazy element. The like spooky, nasty horror slasher kind of thing is not really my thing, but people are also super into that. And there's also plenty of people who do that. There's a guy called Dementio the Clown who does like horror sex clown, and we were just talking about like literally the same thing, where he's like, I go to bars dressed as a spooky clown, and people are initially like, oh my god, and then by the end of the night everyone wants to make out with the clown, you know. Yeah, I also think that the connection between that kind of arousal feeling, listen, the thing about it is clown fears are like any phobia, in that they're irrational.
Yeah.
There's nothing's going to happen to you. You're not afraid of something that's real. So it's something that you can confront and you can overcome. And so like this guy, like he was like, can I touch your dick? And I was like, yeah, sure. You know, like, I don't care.
Who are you to say no?
Honestly, the way that I was like, wow, people want to touch my dick? I'm like, yeah, man, like anyone could, like, I don't care.
Go for it.
Because to me, like, that's not even if that's what gets you into yeah, then go for it. So I was like, yes, you can touch my dick. And then eventually we made out a little bit, and he was like, this has just been so like overwhelming and exciting and arousing and kind of healing, and like, I don't know, and like, thank you. And I was like, okay, your friends
left slightly confused.
Yes, well, his friends were waiting for him, and they were like, he's making out with a clown, what's going on? So I was like, go,
no more drinks for him tonight. No. Oh my god.
But it, you know, I just was like, wow, there is actually a real therapeutic element, and I would love to do like, you know, something where I sort of talk about this stuff and I let people see me get ready, and also just like invite people who are afraid of clowns to watch, and also know that like nothing's going to happen to you, no one's going to mess with you, you can walk away. Because the other thing is, I think part of the fear is the unpredictability and not being able to see the face and not being sure, and so they don't want me to pop out, and so
you're not a jack in the box.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I'm a jack off in the
box,
jack off in someone's box.
Yeah.
But like somebody who is afraid of clowns at an event, I have like a spidey sense for it, because I am overwhelmingly aware that I look like this. I am overwhelmingly aware of people's like side eyes and like weird glances. I know immediately who is like afraid. So if I see you like turn away or like avoid me, dude, I'm not coming near you. Like, I'm ignoring you. And if we cross paths, I'm being super chill, super normal. I'm not gonna try and do anything to upset you or disturb you, because it's like the first fucking thing we learn in kink. If it's not for you, look away. Like, that would be that would just be inappropriate. It would be a violation of like, you know, just the basic rules of the space. Like, we're here to respect each other and be like, cool, man, you do you. So there's no need for me to like part of my kink is not like going around freaking people out. So
unless they want that and it's consensual.
Unless they want that and it's consensual, in which case I'm still not gonna like chase them around the fucking venue, you know?
No.
I did have a guy who like wanted me to pie him in front of everybody, and I was like,
but that's a part of like embarrassing,
right, which is something I do. That's totally fine. You know, we can do it if there's pillories and stocks. That's so much fun. But he was like, oh, I just want you to do it like in the middle of the venue, like whatever,
like randomly.
Yeah. And the venue were like, yeah, we don't care, you can do that. It was the Eagle actually in Manchester. They were like, yeah, cool. Yeah, they were like, awesome. I mean, like, sure. I didn't realize that part of this for him was running away. And so I was like, dude, I don't want to chase you. Like, people are going to be like, what the fuck is happening? So I had to really try and like get him and shut that shit down quickly and be like, dude, you're making this look bad, and then shove the pie in his face. And he loved it, which is the important part. But like, afterwards people were like, did he want that to happen? And I was like, yes, he asked me to do it.
Very consensual.
It's like very, very
But
consensual.
he wanted to look at like it
Yeah.
wasn't consent. Yeah. A little bit of communication might have been great.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're actually coming to the end of our time.
Oh my god, time moves so fast when you're clowning around.
Yeah, well done, pun. So if anyone's listened or watched and been fascinated with what you do, where can they get a hold of you?
Oh, right. I should have memorized all my bits. You can get a hold of me. Currently, the best place, actually, unfortunately, is Twitter, just because I have to stay on there to get commissions and stuff.
Necessary evil.
Necessary evil.
Thing. Yeah.
I'm working to transition to Bluesky, so my Twitter handle is the same as my Bluesky if you prefer to hit me up on there, which is @tstoater, and my Instagram handle is _Muckle_Stoater, and my Instagram, sadly, Instagram Stasi fucking deleted everything, so I've been very, very careful with the new account. I haven't really posted much. There's just kind of like a little bit of my art there, and I am hosting the UK's and maybe world's first ever kinky clown event here in London.
Nice.
Which I'm very, very excited for. So that is going to be on the 18th of January. That's going to be, it's in the Underground at Central Station in King's Cross.
Mm-hmm.
There's a couple...
they do Leather Cruise there, they do Rubber Underground.
Yes.
All day, yeah.
We will actually be, so this is going to happen in the afternoon right before the Leather Cruise. So if you're doing Leather Cruise and you want to like come and see what the hell
what they're clowning about with, yeah.
Come clown around. I'm hoping to do some kind of deal with a couple of the events. Collard have been in talks about maybe doing a deal. If you buy a ticket for one, you get like a discount or a free ticket to the other or something like that. So it'd be cool if maybe we do something like that with Leather Cruise. But yeah, I mean, come on down. The whole thing is very relaxed, very social. There will be some play, but it's mostly going to be social, and we're going to be there from 1 till 6, just so that there's plenty of time for people to get ready. There'll be a changing area. I'll have some paraphernalia for people. But yeah, I mean, my whole thing is that the space is open to all. Anyone's welcome. And whether or not you're just curious, you just want to check it out and see what's going on. If you want to come have some clown sex, absolutely come down. If you want to just have a chat with people dressed as a bozo, totally fine. Or if you want to wear whatever you want to wear. The dress code isn't strict. So if you want to come in leather, latex, lycra, totally fine. If you want to come in whatever fetish wear, pup, ABDL, whatever it is, absolutely fine. Obviously, silliness is encouraged. But
lots of silly string.
Lots of silly string will be shot. But yeah, like, I mean, come dressed as a ringleader, that totally fits the theme. Come dressed as a strong man, an acrobat, like, totally cool.
A circus theme, yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's circus theme, so
someone come as a horse.
Oh my god, that would be amazing.
Yes.
Donkeys, also donkeys and oh yeah.
Pinocchio donkey transformation kits. That is probably a big thing.
Huge. Oh, it's huge. And the crossover of like, come dressed as a puppet, come dressed as Pinocchio, come dressed as a donkey, come dressed as all three, come dressed. We'll make you a clown as well. Like, if you want to get like dressed up as a clown, I'm like also willing to do that. You cannot leave the venue wearing like my very nice gear, because I will hunt you down and make sure I get it back. But
it's like
I'll have some cheaper gear to give out.
Oh, absolutely.
That started happening actually. I bring like a bunch of clown noses with me when I go to events, like cheap ones, because inevitably someone's like, "Hey, can I try on a nose?" And I'm like, "Yes, you can have this cheap one that hops."
Yeah.
And then they leave with it, and I'm like, "Well,
to get cheap shit."
Yeah, but it's like now they have it at home, and now they're jerking off wearing it. And also, I totally forgot, because I have more things of ADHD. If you want to catch the Big Top podcast, that's the podcast that I hope all about niche kinks and paraphilias. You can find that at wherever you like to listen. Actually, it's literally everywhere: Spotify, Apple Podcasts. It's called the Big Top. And you can also send in your kinky stories. I love receiving kinky stories and weird fetishy tales. You can send those to thebigtop.pod@gmail.com. That's thebigtop.pod@gmail.com. So used to saying it twice. Tickets haven't gone online yet for my event. However, if you are potentially interested or just want to check it out, I do have some socials for it. Currently, it only has a Twitter. That's all I've made, yes. And the Twitter is @MSTPresents. The event is called Stuck in the Middle. The event is at MST Presents, because it's the Muckle Stoater Presents. And I called it Stuck in the Middle because you get it. Clowns to the left, jokers to the right. Yeah, so yeah, that'll be fun.
Fantastic. if anyone's watching and they want to get like their first piece of gear, like clown gear, so what would be your first piece to get? What is like the best piece to get?
I would say the nose. I feel like the nose is like the most focal point. It's like you can't ignore it. You can see it. Everybody like sees it. So that to me feels like the most clown identifier. So for me, like nose and shoes are the sexiest parts. The main thing with it is, I guess it's the same as any kink gear. Nobody's really making like clown fetish gear. I want to change that, but I would love to have like a boutique where it's just like silly, like novelty fetish
if
gear.
you contacted Fetish Daddy, they would make it.
They made my rubber suit.
There you go. Yeah, they will make it.
Yeah, I mean, there's plenty of makers who will make cool bespoke stuff. So I would say, like any fetish, don't break the bank. There is no need to start with the most expensive gear. Find out what works for you, what you like, and
then don't go to Fetish Daddy to start.
Yeah,
with.
don't go to Fetish Daddy
when you have a good budget. You've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
A concept. Yes.
Or they'll help you work with the concept.
Oh, absolutely.
They're really good. But when I first started out, all of my costumes were from Amazon or eBay. I mean, there is a ton of cheap novelty clown shit. Start with that. And then there are a lot of companies. Pronos are actually closing down, which is really, really sad. They've been like the longest professional clowners makers for a long time. They have kind of been overtaken by Red Nose Factory, which is this. Really, really awesome people there they kind of innovated the whole, I mean, I can take this on and off like super easily. So they kind of innovated the whole clown nose thing, which is great. Red noses, start with the red nose. Get a foam red nose, and if that makes you come, go from there.
You have a problem every time there's a red nose day, huh?
I really do. I really do.
Well, thank you for coming on. It's been an absolute joy to talk
Thank you for having me. This has been dope. Thank you for letting me come and clown around.
Do some silliness. Yeah, absolutely. It's been an absolute joy to have you on.
I'm sorry that
interesting.
Well, I'm sorry I couldn't bring my honking horn, but I've broken it because I just honked that thing too fucking hard.
Well, yeah.
Honk if you're horny.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Meep, meep.
Brilliant. That was this week's episode. Thank you very much for my lovely clown guest to come on. It's fascinating to me. It's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you and go out and have fun. Go out and clown about.
But yeah, thank you so much. It's been awesome.
It's been great. So I'll see you in 2 weeks' time, and thank you for joining in, and go out and clown about and have a really good time and explore your kinks.
Honk honk.
Bye.
Bye.